So we made some attempt in kind of putting in perspective and had some kind of a handle on the words here in the Maimer. Gilui mibchinas atzmus ein soif shelamara meses vidas agnuzis. That means to explain what is the bechina of atzmus ein soif. So the motion for this, to speak in terms of atzmus ein soif, we said a melech is a means by which we can kind of focus on this concept.
Hello, Rabbi Paltiel.
Hello, Baruch. Hello. A melech is everywhere, but is totally not involved in any of the various qualities that emanate from him. So that, as we said, that a melech, that going back to the simple terminology, a table stands not because of its leg, it stands because the melech wants it to stand. And therefore, the leg complements, it fulfills the melech's will. It's part of the reality. This morning we discussed why would the melech be interested that the table should stand? In other words, where does that come in? If we say a table is primarily a human element, but the tabletop, so where is the standing element come in to say that this is as important as the service itself? So I don't know how many of us caught on to this point. We had the marshal of the general and
just to go from the king to the table.
Yeah.
The last thing I quote about the king was that he is uninvolved in inequalities that come out, that emanate from him. As if to say any of the different ministerial activities. And then how did we come from there into the table and indeed the form of the table?
If the melech can be captured, so to speak, and fully identified via some of these activities, then the others we of second rank.
Then what?
The other activities will be of second rank.
You're saying if the tabletop would be more important than the leg.
Right.
Is that right?
Right.
Is it also right that ultimately here we're talking about metziut and mehus?
Okay, so this is what we are saying. When it comes to the melech, metziut and mehus completely coincide.
Mehus doesn't have a greater rank than
Right.
metziut.
The distinction between metziut and mehus Okay, this is important by Harvey, is when you are relating to things through your intellect and through your faculties. So for the intellect, the experience of a tabletop is much more significant than the existence of legs. But the Melech has a completely different perspective. As we said today, explaining, quoting the Tanya, I'm going to repeat it, and hopefully it will. Tanya explains that the war between Nefesh Elikis and Nefesh Abahamis is a total war. What does that mean? The Nefesh Elikis does not seek only that Nefesh Abahamis should leave it alone. Give me my time, and leave me alone. No, that's not what Nefesh Elikis is saying. Nefesh Elikis, he wants to vanquish Nefesh Abahamis.
Not destroy him, but bring him.
Not destroy him. Make him submissive to him.
Yeah.
Totally. So that there is not a pinky someplace in the toenail that claims, no, this hasn't belonged to Nefesh Elikis. That type of a dichotomy, that kind of fight, is not rational. It is not to satisfy some kind of a rational intellectual experience. It is what's called etzem. It's me versus you. Because there is this element, so this element expresses itself in Rat Rebbe says that the war between two Malachim is not a war of rulership. It's a war of ownership of the city. This is the words in Tanya. Two Malachim are fighting over one city. The fight there is not over idealism. How I believe the city should be run, how you believe the city should be run. It is pure and simple ownership of the city. Who owns it? This is where the principle of Amalek comes in. And we explained many times that the Eibishter had created a human being, and he gave him, a quality of malchus. He is the ruler of the world, Milos v'chivshuha, and this milos of shuva expresses exactly this thing. By human being, there is this element. Yes, he can live in an apartment, he can live and pay rent, but ultimately, he has the capability and he has the bechipshua, so to speak, the mandate to own the property, not just to use it as he wishes. How does he own the property? The property belongs to the world, to God. God gave him that kind of mandate. And by utilizing this mandate, this is how we transform the world into a godly world, into a human world. Not only by the refinement of it, by how we use it, but actually having full jurisdiction over it. It's interesting. Certain mitzvahs like sukkahs, you can only perform the mitzvah with something that you personally own. You can do the mitzvah of esrog and lulav and the forminim and the sukkah if you don't own it. Why? You can eat food that's not yours. Somebody gives you a meal of food, it's his food, and you're eating his food. Even while you're eating, it's his food. You just take an esrog. If you don't own it, it's not yours, it's the mitzvah. I'm not going to explain why. That's certainly too presumptuous. But we do see that there's a difference. You do exactly the same thing, but ownership, 100% ownership, is very significant. This is why this gives us a sense and understanding that we have the mehus in the mehus of things, like re'iyah, that which is but that's not enough, because the mehus does not declare ownership of the place, of the property. It declares only of its use. The metziut is where the ownership is identified.
The metziut is where the ownership is identified?
Identified.
That's...
When do you need to own a piece of land? When you have to put a table on its legs.
So in that moment, the mehus and metziut are coinciding.
This is why we say they coincide, because they're of equal importance.
And that's in just the human faculty of owning, not. I mean, we started with the mashal of the king, but now we're dealing with just...
No, I'm saying by the human being also there is that element. A king, that's his whole entire stance. But there are certain things in the human being also that are reflective of this.
It's not something that's with seichel. This is something
that's not seichel at all. You can't explain up your seichel why an esrog that you don't own, you're not yet a mitzvah esrog.
And the Milchama, the total war in Tanya, that was also another example of this level that's atzmi.
That's right. Because there the total war is not that you should not bother me and let me do my thing. But you shouldn't exist.
Well, you shouldn't exist for yourself.
You shouldn't exist, yeah. Independently.
They're sort of put in a situation though where they automatically contradict each other, no? I mean, the nefesh Bahamas by its existence bothers the nefesh Elokis, no? It can't.
No, why?
A person's having tigers and things like that. How can a person there's going?
So all I want. Okay, that's why I'm quoting from Tanya. Tanya says, "Shnei Malachim Yilchavim al Ir Achas." They're fighting over the property of the city, not over jurisdiction and laws, setting laws.
But also they can guide it towards their will.
What?
It says also they could guide the inhabitants according to their will, right?
Yes. Everything in the world should be submissive to him. Everything. No one can intrude, trespass in this property. All right, so let's continue in this. And this is where it is possible that Re'io and Shmiya should coincide.
Where in this booklet, sorry, I can't find it.
Which line are we on, Rabbi?
Beyond on the line that begins, in the Mem Aleph, the bottom third of the page, the line begins with the word gilui.
It's not the right one.
Gilui, you have Sefer?
First one.
Did you didn't bring it?
I did not bring extras, but the guys are saying this is the previous pamphlet.
Which one do you
Which
have?
is the
Oh,
previous?
I don't know, I didn't check mine yet.
You had the second pamphlet.
You have the
So here, you guys
base.
share this one and
Base. That's what you need.
Okay, so there's one is from the old style. That's the new one.
You guys want to share, and I'll go down over here.
Thanks. So the lower third of the page.
Place it on the end. We'll use it right now.
All right.
How they did in the old days. Share clips.
Okay. V'yesh loymar. Okay, we are towards the middle of that page, of that line. V'yesh loymar. And what can be said about this inyan? Gilui v'chinas atzmus ein soif. L'mara meses firas agnuzis. Shezehu inyan shehu inyan tal tchiyah. Now this is the inyan of tal tchiyah. What does tal tchiyah mean? Tal means to do tchiyah that brings back to life. You can fix any damage. I mean, today we have the medical profession. We can fix. You can take the heart out and put it back in. Amazing thing. As long as the person is still alive. But if God forbid that little connection is lost, it's lost. You can't restore that. Because neshama and guf, neshama and guf can only be joined by a koyach halaki, by atzmus ein sof. If God forbid there is an interruption, you cannot entice the neshama to go back to the guf. You cannot restart life. As long as they're together, they recognize each other. They somehow make peace. But once there's a separation, there's no way you can bring it back in there. There's a story with the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe married into a very wealthy family in Vitebsk. But they were not Hasidim. They were not Hasidim in those days in Vitebsk. At some point in time, the Alter Rebbe went to the musician Maggid. And then he came back, and he was now part of the cut. Everybody heard of the word cut, right? Of that group. And his father-in-law didn't want to know him. It went through very difficult periods until the Alter Rebbe actually left Vitebsk. He moved out and he started running his own show elsewhere. At that point, his father-in-law was not here anymore. His mother-in-law, this widow, a wealthy widow, she saw what the Alter Rebbe is. She went back to him and says, "Come back, I'll support you without any limit. Come back." The Alter Rebbe said that when a baby is born, the baby is so comfortable in the womb that it cries. It doesn't want to leave the womb. And then finally, it's born. It becomes an entity unto himself. At that point, if you offer the baby, you say, "Want to crawl back into the womb?" He says, "No way. I don't want to go back there." So to be stored in the Neshama, the connection between the Neshama and the Guf is an impossibility from any worldly activity. Only metziut atzmus ain't safe. A godly revelation, a godly command. This is what the Rebbe says. This is mibchinas taltchiyah. This is a gilui from atzmus ain't safe, which is like the taltchiyah, a tal that can bring life itself back. You reinitiate life. We connect the Neshama with the Guf.
What does that have to do with being born and not wanting to go back in?
No. It's just an illustration that once you separate, you cannot be enticed to reconnect. And the same thing is in the Neshama. Once the Neshama is separated from the Guf, you cannot draw it back to reconnect. Even though it rules and it gives life and it doesn't want. It's in a different...
Sometimes people...
Well, I'm saying the Eibusha can do it, but without the human effort, you can put two bones together and make them grow. That we can do, and many things. I said you can take your heart out and rejuvenate it and connect it. But bring the neshama back, you can't. And therefore, as a result of that, because it was a gilui b'chinas atzmus inside, hoyo hiskalus hakoiches. There was this hiskalus. Hiskalus, the interrelationship of the koiches. Liyos royin as hanishma. That the koiches themselves are actually interrelated. That roya is a nishma, and we explained that the nishma, this is the metziut, and there could be a need for roya as a nishma, that you could see the nishma. Normally, nishma can only be explained; it has to make sense. Why do you need in our miniature explanation, illustration? Why do you need legs for? Legs are not intuitively necessary from a nishma, but roin is a nishma. Roin is a nishma. What does roin is a nishma mean? Again, as we said before, roin is a nishma means that the principle, in simple terms, the principle, a tabletop is like a tabletop, but that it should be able to stand and occupy place in the world. Through its own means, not being held up by you, but its own means, that is part of the niche of roye. That is part of the definition of a table. That is kalas hakechas.
That is part of his scholars. The last statement.
Yes.
It's part of
Which
how
of
the
the kalas hakechas?
the scholar, each is included in the other.
Right. That's something that is that you shemeya, you understand its value, and then in that understanding becomes of such a rank that it becomes part and parcel of the reality of the table itself.
Yeah, and that's pointing to this state of the state that's higher than the individual faculty.
That's right. This is true only when one recognizes that his function, his presence in the world is not functional. Not just functional, but real. Like we said, I can live functionally, but that's not enough. I can live functionally in a place where nobody will drive me out. It has to be mine. It's a different level. All right. Yesh loimar. Yesh loimar. There is room to say. Over here, in the footnote, they say that perhaps it should be v'yesh loimar, because there is not a question prior to this.
What is the other thing?
Huh?
It says Yesh Lomar, and then it has two things. It says
Ulay tzorech leimar. Yesh Leimer, the Bechinas, okay, we're going deeper into this, it's not any easier. The Bechinas Re'iyah Ushmiya Di Neshama, that the aspect of Re'iyah and Shmiya of the Neshama, Koidem Islapshusu Beguf, before it's mislabish in the goof. This is the neshama the way it is, purely neshama. Before we go into this, I want to kind of prepare ourselves to this Indian. We pointed out many times, Shmuel, that in the creation, in describing this creation in the Torah, a major emphasis and focus on the fact that the things that were created were also named. To the extent that the Rebbe himself named many of the things. The Torah tells us the Rebbe named this and this and this, everything he named. And then he also entrusted other magicians to name the various animals. But the basic creation, the Rebbe named it. He created it, so what's the naming element? The principle of name is giving something an essential presence rather than a functional presence. Which means, I have to explain it, we speak about it all the time. Before the neshama was mislabish in the goof, it did not have this element. Like it says, the neshama itself is called nishma sodom, the neshama of a person. It's not called odom. The goof is called the goof odom. What's called odom? Neshama in the goof, together with the goof. The neshama is by itself this is the greatest thing you have, and that doesn't deserve a name.
Wait, neshama is not a name.
Neshama is just a reference, functionally.
Adam's
Breath.
Adam's not also.
Odom, no. Odom is a statement. Odom is this is his title. This is his name. Oikro Shmom Odom.
Is that to say goof is also not a name?
Goof is also not a name. No, goof is like a leg of a table, a piece of wood. Everything has a name, but that's a functional name. It's not a final product.
Neshama is not a real presence?
What?
The neshama is not a...
It's a real presence, but it's not a final product. Neshama means breath. It gives breath. But it has to give breath. Odom is a final creation. That's why Odom was given a name. So the Rebbe says, based on a little bit on this introduction, that the neshama, the way the neshama is l'mayla before it's mislabish in the guf. The real shmid the neshama came misabshusa beguf. Shehu bechinas riyas hamehus v'hasogas hamehus. The neshama there, the neshama in its purity, only recognizes mehus. What does that mean? There is no metziut. The neshama does not know what physical world is. Everything the neshama knows is of a godly quality. If I can put it this way, everything that she said makes sense. It's real. It has a meaning in its presence. If you recall, it's going back some time, even though it's on the same page, when the Rebbe said on top of the page here, the third line from the top, is toifus mehus hadover. He is toifus the mehus of something, and that's why it's toifus dover agashmi. That's why it's toifus agashmi. So we explained. Some seems to be counterintuitive. No, but that's a shot. Because what is a gashmi? A gashmi is a real presence that doesn't need. It's not there by explaining why I'm here. I'm here because God wants me to be here. That's what gashmi is. That and that's why Raviyah is toifish b'gad davar gashmi. Neshama, the way the neshama is l'mayla, the third established in the guf, doesn't know of gashmis. So even though it has a re'iyah, okay, in his what the Rabbi is saying, look inside. Shehu bechinas re'iyas hamehus v'amsogas hamehus. The neshama had re'iyas hamehus. It's why mehus. Mehus means it's reality. What is it about? And asogas hamehus, and also the understanding of hamehus. What is it? It can understand in the reality. This is why the neshama was l'mayla in before the neshama. As in the example of the neshama in Gan Eden, where the neshama understands everything from a godly perspective. When it sees something, when it recognizes, when it identifies something, it immediately sees what makes it be and why it's there. That's not to understand. That's all hamehus. He sees its reality and he understands its reality. This is the neshama before it established in the guf. Hinei zehu v'ho'ed hishtalshus. This hasoga of the neshama is applying itself to the oil of the hishtalshus, the oil of the hishtalshus of the world. What does hishtalshus mean? Hishtalshus means the orderly descent of the oil from lamayla lamata, from atzilus and vriya, from chokhmah into bina. Well, hishtalshus means every madrege has its own sense and its own explanation, and you see how the low madrege is related to the high madrege. And what their interrelationship is. So this is the Hoyev Hishtalshelus. V'hainu, which means we discuss this in this Indian, that is it's a rich Indian, but I just want to get the point. V'hainu b'ha'ora ho'alaki shebo b'b'chinas islapshut ba'ilapis. This is the ha'ora alakis. The reflection, the God reflection, ha'ora, that comes be islapshus le'ilapis. That can actually be mislavish and can actually be contained and relate to world.
I don't get the meaning of this phrase right here. He is her Hishtauschus.
All right.
What does it mean?
Okay, I'll explain.
In other words, he's saying the re'iyas of the mehus and the sagas of mehus that the neshamas have is in the order of Sir Hishtauschus,
Right.
but not something else. Where
Not the etzem hoyer.
The neshamas don't have a re'iyas of mehus and the sagas of mehus of the etzem ha'or.
Right. Let's we learned already that we have to. One of the things that we are trained in the patients over here.
I only want to understand the words.
Okay. So this oil histalshelus. What is oil histalshelus? Histalshelus means the oil that can relate to lower madrigas. It can be mislavish or mislavish be'oilamis. What does it mean in our terms? It means you can make sense of it from a worldly perspective. There are many different levels in this. Do we understand? Let's go back to our consensual table. We spoke about a table. A table is something which is conceptualized in the human mind, all the way into his perception of what a human being is, and his seichel, chokhmah, bina, das, and so forth. And then it goes down into oilamis. It goes down to oilamis. A table is simply a convenient thing. If he needs to drink a cup of tea, he needs a place to put down the cup. Where it becomes totally part of world, and there is not that much, although we explained that also has an intellectual element, but that's already concealed here. It becomes completely part of the world. This is called the Ora Lakis that comes with the Histalshelus. Histalshelus means, like I said before, by a king there is no ranks. Among the officers and among all the entire army structure, there is definitely an influence. That's Histalshelus. And a foot soldier becomes a lieutenant, becomes a sergeant, and becomes a lieutenant, then becomes a captain, then it goes up. There's a saying, you can reach any rank through your excellence, through your effort, but you cannot become a king. There's an unfathomable gap You can't bridge that gap. If you have your eye on the king's position, you have no right to live altogether. That's what Homenke wanted. Homen was vying with it. He was painting to experience to be king for a moment. He says, let him just take me around and put the crown on the head. Even if for the moment. So this ha'ora lekis, bo bebechinas is slapshus ba'elamis, it can't be slapshus ba'elamis, not ultimately it can relate to world at every level of world, at different levels, different ways. Do we understand this? This is there's quite a fine principle in this. It's one thing to serve.
You're saying the mush of the table is that the or which is not mislavish and almost that would be like the concept of the table as it is, and it's like in the human, like the intellectual understanding of. I didn't quite catch the distinction between mislavish and the mush of the table.
We have our original illustration of Moshe. He says they have a guest and a host. The host is welcoming the guest, and he is serving him a meal. Presumably, he's serving him a meal on a comfortable table and chairs. All that can be mislavish and oilus. It has a worldly definition. But the presence of the host itself cannot be mislavish by others. There is no way to represent that in a worldly form. And we said many times, should the host leave, the whole thing falls apart. That way that he expresses his affection and his relationship can all be, that's ha'ora, that say that he's talshalus. That's mislavish ba'elam, that can be mislavish ba'elamus. But then there is an element that cannot be mislavish ba'elamus. There's no worldly means by which to capture it.
Even though we had at the top of the page that Gashmi is
right. But there, okay, I'll answer your question because it's a little bit premature. There we're talking about Gashmi, plain Gashmi. Not a nice table and a nice plate. We're talking just plain Gashmi. As we said, who is interested that it should be begashmis? This is the melech. The general wants peace. He wants that that his rank shouldn't be disturbed. Doesn't need the turf. Doesn't need the territory. Who wants a territory? The melech. It's a different level. So this which the neshama is able to understand, B'riyah and Shmid and Neshama in Gan Eden, is all the Ho'er B'Yishtalshelus, which is Ha'ora Lakis, Shebol B'Chinis, is Slapshut Boilos. It's Ha'ora Lakis, it understands everything from a Lakus perspective, because only a Lakus is real to the Neshama. But it's a Ha'ora Lakus that can be translated on the worldly level. I'm going to skip the branches just for now, and tomorrow Mishumpi. Okay, just 2 lines down. Avol etzem ha'oir. But the etzem of the oir. There is not the hasaga in the mehus.